but they still got to overcome some hate from the SEC officials. Haters.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Once again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in, subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jay, the Oklahoma Sooners had seemingly had to overcome not just the guys that they played on the other side of the ball, but at times some overlooking of things by SEC officials. And our guy, John Hoover of All Sooners on SI, actually pulled the stats to reflect that, hey, maybe Oklahoma doesn't get as many calls as some of their SEC counterparts.
Nope, they don't. So looking at the penalties that Oklahoma actually had got called on them, 83 penalties on the season, which puts them right at like 10th in the SEC. Averaging 6.9 per game, which that puts them at 10th in the SEC. So Oklahoma got called, right in the middle of the pack when it comes to being called. The ones that didn't get very many calls on them was Georgia and Alabama. So I guess they're just more disciplined. Kentucky's up there too. Shout out to the former head coach Mark Stoops.
Yeah,
former head coach Mark Stoops figured it out. Florida's at what was considered very disciplined as well, but the opposing teams called penalties against them. Oklahoma was the bottom of the barrel. 54 penalties was called against the opponents in the SEC against Oklahoma just this season. 54, 423 yards, 4.5 penalties per game. It's all they had, which is the lowest in the SEC. Right above them at 15th in the conference, Texas. Kind of crazy that the new kids on the block didn't really get very many penalties called in their favor this year. Is this like initiation for the new people? Is that what we're doing? Is this like the first 2 years you're going to get like punked a little bit and we're going to see what's going to happen? I'm confused as to why Oklahoma was so low. Truthfully.
I mean,
you would have thunk there have been more holding calls called based upon how ferocious our defensive line has been, but could be other things.
Well, some of it is this, Jay, and I've noticed it watching the NFL and college football as well, is our guys just don't act. They're not flailing about trying to make big shows out of, oh, look at me, I'm getting held. No, they just go play ball. And unfortunately, that doesn't get rewarded because the officials, they are only drawn to the, oh, hey, look at me, I'm getting held. No, it's the silliness of it. It's the same reason like Micah Parsons, formerly of the Dallas Cowboys, now of the Green Bay Packers, why he doesn't get a whole lot of holding calls, because he's not flopping around like a fish trying to draw the attention to himself that, hey, I'm getting held. No, he's going in attack mode. Same like our defensive line. They're playing in attack mode. They're not trying to Oscar their way to a holding call. But the reality is they're getting held a bunch because holding happens on every play. You talk to football guys and holding happens on every play.
Yeah.
But they're getting held to the extent that it prevents them from getting to the quarterback or the running back.
Yeah. The fascinating thing too with that is that if you paid attention to the opponents that Oklahoma's played, besides wearing the Unity jerseys, the opposition has a tendency, especially when Oklahoma's on the road, the opposition has a tendency to wear white gloves, which matches perfectly with Oklahoma's jersey. So it's really hard to tell when it comes to penalties and stuff on that. So if Oklahoma adopted a similar, strategy as the opposition and wore gloves to match the opposing team's jersey colors, maybe they may get less calls against them as well. I don't know, but it feels like that's a smart thing to do because I know that in that Tennessee game, they were in dark mode and it was beautiful, but those white gloves were definitely not aesthetically pleasing, but they completely blended into Oklahoma's jerseys. I mean, to the point of our Mason Thomas is literally being pulled and held during the entire sequence of the fumble happening that still bounced in his hands, and he still found a way to throw the dude off of him and run it back for a touchdown. You don't get that very often when a guy looks like they're being held the whole time. Literally, jersey's just like this the entire time, and he still is able to get away and score a touchdown. Granted that led to a quad situation, but I digress. Maybe Oklahoma needs to take in that strategy too, John. Maybe we need to go ahead and switch things up and start getting some jerseys, some gloves that match everybody else. Maybe in this game against Alabama coming up, we should wear white gloves.
I'm for it. Also, I did not notice that Tennessee was wearing white gloves.
Oh, yeah. They were complaining. Mode. Yes. Fans were complaining like that is so ugly.
Bad.
It's so not. It does not fit the aesthetic. Why are they doing that? And I was like, oh, it's a genius play. They're doing that to match Oklahoma's jerseys. That's why you do it. You don't. And it was solid white. You didn't see orange. You didn't really see orange accents so much anything. But if you go back and look at the pictures from the game, you're gonna be like, are you serious? It looks gross. But
I hate that.
Like I said,
I hate Tennessee even more now because of that. Not because of the strategy. Like strategy is genius. Just because of the fashion faux pas. It's terrible. It was a terrible look. You had such a great opportunity in that dark mode situation. It looked so good otherwise. And maybe amazing. I just was not paying close enough attention on the TV, but white gloves.
White gloves. And you barely had a little bit of an orange like Nike check on there. So there was a little bit, but for the most part, the aesthetics were not as pleasing as you would have wanted. They were as white as you can imagine with dark mode. Terrible.
Yeah. So Oklahoma, yeah. Let's go wear our white gloves with our crimson. I think it'd go better because you're wearing white pants. You've got white in the logo on the side of the helmet. Like there's white in your uniform.
Yeah, you should.
So you can wear white gloves. Yeah, you can wear white gloves. That's not a big deal. Bama will probably come out wearing crimson gloves just because it'll blend into Oklahoma's jerseys.
And they wear crimson anyway, so it all goes together at the same time. Together. Yes. Again, like it's just when it's not aesthetically pleasing, like, like I said, that was the complaint from Tennessee fans going into that game. They're like, why are they wearing white gloves with this? And I'm just like, dang it. They're so smart. I hate their guts.
It's clever. Hey, respect to the cleverness, but lack of respect to the fashion.
I hate them for ruining that beautiful fashion setup. So
it's egregious, is what it is.
It very much is. We should have wore black. If we would have wore black gloves, but our players were wearing either crimson or white gloves, we would have just wore black gloves on the defensive line. That would have been awesome to throw everything off too. But no, it was not aesthetically pleasing. We like our Nike glove, our Jordan gloves to be matching our colors. So what else?
As an aside, before we get out of here, Jay, because we've now played Alabama 3 times in the last 14 months. I feel like at some point we've got to come up with some kind of crimson themed trophy between the two sides, because we're going to be playing on a more regular basis. Now it won't be every year because we're not permanent rivals, but
I don't even think we play each other next year.
No, we don't play probably for another 2 or 3 years.
I think it's 2 years. I have to look. I'll find the schedule real quick.
But create some crimson trophy to go back and forth between the two schools. I don't know. I'm a fan of that kind of stuff. I know it's not a traditional rivalry. It's not one that's going to move the needle, but since we're going to play each other, we both got crimson. They're 2 blue blood programs. Yeah. We can start a new tradition.
I mean, you're not wrong. I don't think that that's a bad idea. If you really think about it, it would be cool to have something like that, but yeah, it doesn't feel like, because we're not going to play each other enough. I mean, though it's 3 times in the last 2 years, that they would warrant having some sort of a quote unquote crimson rivalry trophy. So we don't play them in 26. We play them in 27. So they come back to Norman in 27, and then we go to Tuscaloosa in 2029. So yeah, it's the every other at that point, and I'm glad the SEC has decided that it made sense to make sure everybody plays against everyone, because if I'm correct, Georgia has never been to College Station, and Texas A&M has never been to Athens in this entire time that they've been together the last 12 years. Like, how have you not figured out how to make the scheduling force it to where every other year the guys have to see each other, regardless of you being in different divisions? Like, you got to play the cross division anyway. May as well do every other year, force them to go see each other in some capacity, but it looks like they didn't do that. But they're doing it now, though, because we've got 9 games coming up.
Yep, we do. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube. You can follow me at John9Williams and read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer.
Sooner.